Welcome to the Mental Health Boot Camp podcast.
Hooray.
This is the podcast where 4 psychotherapists, 3 of us Canadian, 1 of us American, serve you cutting edge mental health knowledge. I am Dr. Ryan Howes, a clinical psychologist from Pasadena, California.
I'm Dr. Brooke Lewis, a registered clinical counselor from Coquitlam.
And I'm Joanna Boyd, also a registered clinical counselor, and I live in Port Moody.
I'm Chris Boyd, psychotherapist for Metro Vancouver.
Woo-hoo.
Metro Vancouver area, wonderful. Guys, it's time to celebrate because here, after only 90 some episodes, we have finally reached every one of the United States. Welcome, North Dakota. We've got all 50 states covered by the podcast.
That's awesome. Thank you, North Dakota, whoever you are.
Should have bought a cake.
We should have bought a cake.
We should have bought a cake. I think it's spectacular. I can't believe that people from all over tuned in at one point or another to listen to us. It's a little bit of international relations here. We got Canadians, we got Americans, we're coming together. And I noticed that all of the lower, do you call them lower provinces or?
Yeah.
Just
Oh, we don't. Yeah, just provinces.
Just provinces. You don't distinguish between the northern ones?
those
Yeah,
are
there's the territories the territories and provinces, I guess, would be the distinction.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we got the provinces as
Mhm.
well as a whole bunch of countries around the world. So thank you all for listening. We appreciate it very much. It's been a very fun run. We're starting to wind down a little bit, actually, in our podcast.
That's right.
Getting a little closer to an ending. We're not there yet. This is episode 97. So we have 98, 99, and 100 yet to go after this. One of those will be a book club where we'll be talking about Irvin Yalom's book, The Gift of Therapy.
Yes.
And I guess a couple other of us will present, and then we'll do like a wrap-up episode, probably. Or no, one other of us will present. We'll do something like that.
Me. Yeah, so you are the ambusher tonight. I ambush next time. Then we book club and then a wrap-up episode.
Yes, there we go. That's it.
Reflection, right?
A reflection episode.
I propose.
Prepared for that, not necessarily an ambush, unless you want to come up with ambush reflection questions, kind of like Joanna's rapid fire. Pick a number of questions. You can.
Oh yeah.
Way too, like an award ceremony.
Oh, there we go.
Moment. Your favorite test.
I suggest that we dress up,
Okay.
Sure. Like, do you have a theme in mind?
like nice dress, I think, or we can do something silly, but I don't know, kind of like a.
Like
I don't know,
gala.
Chris could wear his top hat, things like
Perfect.
Oh, put on my grad dress again. That's any chance I get. Put that sucker on.
There you go.
I
That's
love
really
it.
fancy. Okay, good.
We will dress up, and we'll also request that the people listening to that final episode will dress up as well.
That's you, Sean, and whoever's listening down.
Whoever's listening, who knows? Yes, but we. Okay, that's good. That's a great idea. It'll be themed. It'll be formal. It'll be like our own self-interested Oscars ceremony.
Yes.
But way more popular.
Yeah, way more popular than the Oscars for sure. Very, very cool. What's anything been going on? Any hot topics going on right now for you guys?
I don't know.
Winter doldrums? Anything like that?
We're celebrating. Well, I guess everyone celebrating the new lunar year.
Yeah.
So year of the rabbit, and is it just the rabbit, or is there a shared? I don't know.
As far as I know, it's the year of the rabbit.
Year of the rabbit.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. The Canadian holiday, the Lunar New Year.
It's also,
Canadian, Chris? Come on.
No, it was.
but it was it yesterday was Robbie Burns Day
Oh, is it?
as well.
Oh, look at that.
So
Who's Robbie Burns?
He's a Scottish poet.
Uh-huh.
So his life was
A
very
singer.
short. It was only 37 years or something, but he wrote, I don't know, over
Hundreds,
200
yeah.
poems and has a bunch of songs. So Old Lang Syne, I'm saying that incorrectly, but that's him. And so a song that's definitely stuck with us. So locally up here, I'm sure they do it all over. There's like little Robbie Burns celebrations that you can go to. So we went to one last week. Where they read some poetry and sing some songs and pipe in a haggis and
Why
have
why is
fun.
why is a Scottish poet so popular in Canada?
I have no idea. That's not a Joanna question. Brooke and Chris.
I mean, I've heard of Robert Burns, and I don't think I've read his poetry, but I mean, it's not really a thing down here.
Oh, really? No Robbie Burns Day?
It's not.
It's
I
kind of
won't
like
say
the
it's a
Scottish
huge
St. Patrick's Day,
Yeah, it's not a
but not as big.
huge
Yeah.
deal.
And I wouldn't say it's necessarily across the board in Canada. Do we even know that? I feel like locally there's some bands that'll acknowledge it and stuff, but I couldn't say if other provinces it's a big thing or anything.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah. And I wouldn't call it a big thing. I'm just
No.
aware that that's because that was the 25th is his birthday or something. So that's why it's Robbie Burns Day. Yeah.
All right. Congrats to Robbie Burns. I'll say that the year of the rabbit is a symbol of longevity, peace, and prosperity. And 2023 is predicted to be a year of hope.
Lovely.
You definitely use a bit of hope these days, eh?
I think we could all use a little hope. Yes.
Cool. That's great.
Yeah. Well, good. We're happy about that.
We are happy about that.
It's
indeed.
true.
That's right. Well, I guess, shall we just move on to our topic?
Let's do it. Let's hear this ambush. I'm sure you have a list. Is your list dwindling? How many more things are on your list?
Just one.
Is it only one?
That's where we're
Is there
ending
10?
this thing.
I do have a list, but I kind of curated a little bit to pick one for the occasion. I hope that's all right. All right, you guys ready for this?
It is all right. Yes.
All right, here we go.
Here's the ambush. I know the topic. You do not. I'm sending it to myself. Here we go. Here we go. Here's the ambush. Ready? How to handle endings. We've
Oh,
discussed grief before, but how can we handle the smaller endings in life? The transitions, maybe jobs that end, friendships that end, podcasts that end. How do we manage and navigate even the smaller endings in life? It's all related to grief, but I wanted to bring it to a day-to-day level.
I like it.
Okay.
Yeah, good one.
And
Yes.
that wraps up our podcast. Let's end it there. And
That's not a good ending, though.
no,
That's
that
not
would
a
be
good
a
ending.
bad ending.
That's a good example of how not to end our podcast.
Yeah, that would not be a good ending. We need to have an Oscar-style celebration to end our podcast.
I actually think the plan for the last podcast is actually a better ending, right? But time to reflect and to share some
Yes, I think that's really important. And actually, what was just illustrated here was a great piece to pull from Brooke's joke there, saying, "Okay, let's just stop here," because I think a lot of times, I mean, people have different responses to endings, right? If you know something's going to end, and I've talked a lot about this in terms of therapy, so maybe that will be a part of this as well. But sometimes when people know that there's an ending coming, they might just say, "Oh, well, I don't want to have that awkward or the weirdness or the feelings that come up with that ending, so I'll just cut it off right now. Boom, I'll just cut and run, I'll just split."
And I think that's very common. You see that, I think, in many, like the person in the relationship who says, I'm going to break up with them before they break up with me.
Uh-huh.
Or it's your last day of work and you just don't show up.
Yes, perfect. Yes.
that one, or you know it's probably gonna be wrapping up with your last therapy session and you don't show, like a lot of the no-shows, or yeah, so that you're in control of it, or what's the point? It might as well end now, right?
Yeah.
So I'll share a little bit. You guys have heard me talk about this before, but I'll share it with the listeners since they'll benefit from it. So I worked for a while in a counseling center as a supervisor of student therapists, and so they had to rotate in, and they had a year placement in this counseling center, so they'd be there from like June to June, and they'd oftentimes get a group of new clients in June and kind of throughout the summer and fall. And if the clients were really interested in long-term work, they'd stick with them for that whole time. And sometimes the students who had been seeing a client, maybe had seen them for all that year or most of that year. So in like March or April of that year, I'd talk to my supervisees and I'd say, you've been working with this client for a long time. It might be good to remind the client that you're actually going to be ending in June, and that at that point you guys can stop, or you'll have to stop therapy, but they could transfer to another therapist, or maybe that's a good time for them to stop therapy. And that's something that they would talk about together. And so the students would go off and tell their clients, hey, by the way, just want to remind you that my time here is ending in June. And there'd be a few different responses to that. One of those responses would be the Brooks response there of like, oh, you're going to stop in June? Well, then I guess I'm done with therapy, right?
Mhm.
Even though it's 3 months off or 4 months off, like, I guess I'm done then. Let's just stop now. Other clients would be like, would say like, oh yeah, whatever, no big deal. They just kind of brush it off and say, yeah, I knew that anyway. It's no big deal. And I'll just maybe transfer to the next person. Other people would be a little more concerned about it. What, you're leaving? You're going to leave our work? You're going to leave our time together? They feel it a little deeper in some ways. And if the client didn't just split at that moment, I'd be talking with my supervisees about how the client was in the sessions for the next couple of months. And even the clients who were like, yeah, no big deal, it's nothing. Oftentimes the content of what they'd be talking about in the sessions would be things like other losses in their life, or other endings in their life, or things that had stopped or ended at different times, even though they weren't even aware that they were relating that to the ending of therapy. And sometimes that was some of the richest material, some of the best material that they could discuss, because oftentimes what brings people into therapy is some sort of a loss or another. Lost a job, lost a relationship, lost some aspect of their health or their youth or something. So really talking through that stuff can be really important and powerful. And also what we talked about was having a nice ending, having an actual finish line to the work, and kind of a graduation is an important part, I think, of therapy and of a lot of relationships in life, to be able to say goodbye and have that closure and really talk it through. And therapy is one place where we can do that. We can actually take the time and kind of craft it out and talk about what that meaning will look like and what that will mean to us, and really have a good, clean goodbye.
Yeah.
So there's my lecture.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Yeah, it really captures the main elements of a good ending, right? Also the build up to it and how those feelings can vary. Yeah, it's interesting, like the sense of loss and the anticipation of loss, and how that could trigger old feelings and memories, and that's where you have they use that term defense mechanisms a lot. Like you have these ways of dealing with it, right? Ways of coping with those intensive feelings. And so for those therapists to be able to sort through that and actually maybe help them grieve not only the loss of therapy with them, but other losses in their lives, I think is really neat.
Have you guys ever experienced losses that are, relational losses, I think, are really impactful and meaningful to us, but even smaller things like when a restaurant closes, or if you really love a book or a TV series that's coming to an end, and there's a loss, it's gonna come to a close, and you like feel that little bit. I don't. Have you guys ever experienced that?
Of course, yeah, and I think it can come in a bunch of different ways. Like you said, maybe I don't know if I've really had it for like books or movies, but I'm thinking other transitions, granted bigger transitions in life, like moving, selling somewhere and moving somewhere else, or a big one for me, while it was definitely tied with positive emotion, once the positive emotion subsided, there was some interesting feelings of voidness or numbness, was finishing school. And that really hit after my bachelor's. That was the biggest one, I think. For whatever reason, even though I had a plan to move on, that one was kind of funky. Or ending jobs, but that one's a bit more relational, I think, because you're saying goodbye to the people. Yeah.
The people, but also like the routine and
Yeah.
moving is a big one. That's a great one there. I definitely can think of like those last moments when you're moving the final box out of your apartment or your house or something, and you're like looking around and like, I lived here. There's a attachment to the space, even, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the memories that you created in that space. I was even thinking about like someone who's training to do a marathon of some kind, and it's a source of meaning and purpose, and you work so hard towards that goal. And often when they're completed it, there's maybe some short elation, but there's also like some sadness and down after, right?
Have you guys run a marathon?
No.
No.
Haven't even run a 5K.
We're trying though.
I did run one marathon many years ago, and came across the finish line. Thank God I finished. It was hard. All marathons are hard. This was a tough one. And I came across the finish line and just sat down against the wall and cried.
Mhm.
Really?
Just wept. And part of it, I think, was the pain, and part of it was the I guess the relief that I had finished. But yeah, I think part of it was like this journey had, this 6 months or whatever that had built up for this time had drawn to a close. But wow. And I think just my physical exhaustion contributed to that too. Like, no more defenses left. It's all coming out now.
Yeah, for sure.
And I've talked about it with people. That's not uncommon. That's a very common thing for people to just weep at the end of something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's meaningful and purposeful, and it's been a part of your life. It's familiar to you, and it's been beneficial. And that's, yeah, of course, it's going to be a bit of a difficult and a more difficult ending, I guess.
Yeah, just hard. Yeah.
I think, or as well, if people like endings of big holiday trips, or something you're really looking forward to and planning for, or kind of big celebrations, or I don't know, even holidays. Like, I know they come around every year, but I still think they're still dealing with some kind of ending of something positive, maybe, or maybe even something stressful. I guess it depends what kind of ending, or what was happening. I'm sure there's a lot of responses. There could be some happiness to something stressful being done. There could be, but yeah, there's probably some impact there, depending. I just thinking of smaller endings, as you mentioned.
Yeah. That's a great point. When a really good vacation is drawing to a close, there's some sadness about that too.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, the post-vacation or post-holiday blues a bit
Yeah.
as you pivot back to
Routine.
and whatnot.
Yeah.
So many different types of endings, eh? My goodness.
Brooke, you mentioned that books and movies were not so much your thing, but I remember I watched the series Breaking Bad after it was popular, I guess. Maybe after the whole series ended, I started watching it, and but just really fell in love with the whole storyline and the characters, and it was just felt so compelling. And I remember towards the end, when there was the last like 2 or 3 episodes left, I I spaced them out. I was like, I wanted to savor them a bit. Like I didn't want it to be over, so I kind of pushed it out a little bit farther, right? Like, no, I won't watch it now. I'll watch it maybe this weekend or something. So I didn't want it to end. And that was another response to the ending. Like I wanted to keep it around for a while.
Interesting, some avoidance of the ending completely. Like you were gonna do it, we were just trying to space it out, I guess.
I wanted it to last, you know, I wanted it to last for, I
Wanted
didn't
to
want
savor
be-
it.
And I think
Yes.
that's very common. I've heard from many clients about that, like different TV shows, movies, books as well, like you said, where it gets to the, you know, the last chapter or whatnot, and they need to put the book away. Because they wait, and it might be a few weeks before they go back to it because they're not ready for it to be over.
Mhm.
And it's interesting that in those examples, books and movies, maybe a person who hasn't had some very positive endings in their past can have control over an ending. Maybe there's been endings that have been out of their control. Maybe they moved around a lot as a kid, or maybe something they had to go through grief or something. So I do wonder a little bit there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It was Harry Potter for me. When those Harry Potter books were done, like, yeah, it's you know, there's seven books, and the last one, yeah, it's just kind of a weird thing. You look forward to that new book every year or two, and all of a sudden when it's done, even though it's not going anywhere and you could always reread it or something, but it's a weird, nothing to look forward to. You're kind of done. The characters have reached, there's nothing else. So kind of similar to a show, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
But
And then
Very
that
same.
feeling of like, what now?
Yeah.
What now?
it's almost like we're all gonna be fine without those things, but I think it's just it was just fun to be a part of it, the world you were a part of, and there's sadness there. Just I just really enjoyed being immersed in that. It was a cool thing. Yeah.
That's a great way to look at it, Joe. Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked being a part of it. I liked being connected to, even it's not a relationship, not a real world relationship if it's a book or a movie or a TV series, but it's like I like how I feel when I'm in this space, you know. I don't want to let it go.
And you might get attached to characters, you know. It's like if someone dies in a show you like or something, like people are moved by these things, or they get upset, or
Oh yeah.
you know. Anyway, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Yes. So when it comes to these sorts of endings, I guess you know, what are some good coping mechanisms for that? I mean, I talked about one, prolonging, kind of stretching it out as long as you possibly can, I guess, but that's not always possible. You know, we can't always.
Is that what we're doing with this podcast? We're really doing one podcast every
4 weeks.
4 weeks.
Maybe we're savoring it. Who knows? Yeah. I also think that life circumstances are getting in the way, but
Yeah, no.
yeah, I think that's probably could be part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, there's so much subjectivity here. I think it is based on the individual and the
Sure.
circumstance. I think having time to connect and reflect and honoring that ending is important. I actually have a client I saw very today, and he put his 2 weeks in. This has been his main career. He's been at this company organization for a long time. So now he decides this is the time to do it, but this is something we've been talking about for a while and been kind of taking the steps towards it. So he did actually decide not to show up to work a couple of days in a row there, but he did let everyone, the important people or the people he was closest to, he let them know that he was leaving. And so he got to debrief that with the people he was closest to. And then at his closer team, they asked if he's going to be there on the last day. And he's like, why? He's like, I think you know why. They want to do something for him, right? So they gave him the heads up so he wouldn't just skip out, because I think there's a part of him that kind of wants to. So it's good that he has that encouragement from his colleagues as well as from me. But a lot of feelings. I think there's a lot of relief. He's looking forward to the future. And there's also been a lot of planning about what the future looks like. I'm not sure if you've ever seen that movie about Schmidt with Jack Nicholson. So he was, I think it was a forced retirement. I think he was basically put his time in, and he had to step away, but he had really nothing to do after that. So anyway, interesting movie. If you haven't
Mhm.
seen it yet.
Yeah. Something you talked about it, but not directly, celebrating the endings, I think are really important to, to honor them, and whether that's, you could do that however you want. So in that example of work, whether that's with the colleagues, or if that's with your family or friends at home.
Yeah.
But something to kind of mark the occasion or celebrate it.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think his family is also going to do something too, and invite some of the colleagues out, which is great. So if you're going to honor that, I don't think he knows that, but yeah, I think that's a big component, right?
I think so.
And to kind of step into that discomfort a bit, and and I think in the end it's going to be very meaningful, very
Mhm.
purposeful for him.
What does celebrating it do? What does that actually, how does that make it better, or what does that do for our psyches, do you think, Brooke?
That's a great question, Ryan. And I don't know definitively what it does for our psyches, but I think it's just a nice thing to do, because I think it's acknowledging something that you've done, something that's over potentially, right? That, well, it is over if it's ending, but like there was a lot of good things that would have happened as well. So instead of just focusing perhaps on the feelings of grief and loss, it's saying this was still a good thing, and we want to cherish it, and you did good with whatever it was, and
Yeah, sounds like a rite of
you
passage a bit.
yeah, rite of passage, and
Like
Just
human-
acknowledgement.
Yeah, and human beings, I think we have a long history of celebrating and coming together for big milestones, and I think it's important to honor that. So for employers as well, to have those systems in place, I think it's important to do that.
It's interesting. I agree, and I think that for the big things like a graduation, or leaving a job or getting a new job, those are good occasions for that. But I've actually found it to be pretty important with my clients in therapy that I like to place a focus on celebrating wins in their life in a bigger way, because sometimes people gloss over that, and I think it is really important. Like someone says, I've maybe we've been working on speaking up with their spouse or something like that. I have a hard time speaking up and asking for what I want, and then they come into the session and they say, oh, by the way, I was able to speak up to my spouse and ask for something last week. And then they want to kind of rush on to the next thing. And I'm like, oh, wait a second.
Yeah,
Let's celebrate that.
Mhm.
That is a big deal. That is a really important accomplishment for you. You really achieved something. You pushed past the fear. Like, let's pause and like celebrate that for a minute. And I think it's
Exactly.
important because it gives a positive feeling to that experience, and acknowledges the effort and the hard work that was involved, that
for sure.
oftentimes people were eager to rush on to the next thing. Yeah, I did this, but there's still these things left to do. Well, yeah, but you
Or
did
it's
this.
interesting. Yeah, and they may have spent like a session or two talking about that thing, or that it was going to be really hard to do, or they're going to have anxiety about it. And then it's just the briefest of like glossing over. And I'm like, wait a sec, did you just say you did the thing that we have talked about that you thought was going to be the worst thing ever for so
Yeah.
long? Like, you did it. And yeah, anyways, that happens a lot with clients. I just
absolutely.
because especially if there's a few weeks that goes by since you've seen them, yeah, I find myself pausing quite a bit to be like, wait a sec, like we got to talk about this a little bit, because it doesn't seem like probably a big deal to them after the fact, because it was probably a lot easier, or it went better than they thought it was going to go. But
Yeah.
anyways, it's so important to do that. I agree. I think it's very common in therapy for it to be sped through.
Years ago I had some younger clients who had some goals and really anxious about it. So when they came back and when they achieved their goals, I actually had confetti poppers. Let the confetti pop and go. I'm like, yay, we celebrated. It's already a mess. You have to vacuum it up and all that stuff. And,
That's great. I love that.
Yeah, I had one little cake time too. So
I think it's for a lot of people, it's in our nature to devote a lot more time focusing on our mistakes than on our successes, you know?
Totally.
And I think that one of the positive parts of therapy and other helping relationships can be to kind of change that narrative a little bit. Let's spend at least as much time dwelling on the positives and the success that you've had, so that we can, you know, really indulge that, you know, enjoy that and savor that, instead of just rushing off to the next problem we have, right?
Yeah.
yeah, no, good point. That's great. Very healing.
Yeah. Another thing that I think helps in endings is a good dose of just acceptance. Like you may feel happy about it, and that's great. You may feel a little bit down or sad, and that's okay too. Just give yourself some time to recalibrate, and if it gets too stuck, then that's the time to reach out and do something about it. And yeah, so as I mentioned, I had a really hard time, like after my bachelor's. I was really thrown off. I had just plowed through a bunch of school for so long in my life, and I wasn't going to have school for 9 months, quite lost. And I feel like I was in a little bit of a funk. Like I just, there was less motivation, kind of just feeling down, and didn't know what to do, really lost. And it was probably about 2 weeks, and I was like, I have to figure something out here to get myself going. So I did what I was familiar. So I went with my friend Jessica, who was still going to university at that time, and I sat in on 2 of her classes. Like I got up early in the morning. It was like an 8:30 class or something ridiculous, and I did my routine as if I were a student. Like got the coffee and the muffin, and I sat with her in her class. And it didn't take very long, and I was like, "Why am I doing this? This is ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm done.
I don't actually need to be here anymore." And then for whatever reason, that helped, and away I went.
It's almost like a transition thing for you, Brooke.
Yeah, like it
Eased out.
unstuck me. And yeah, I don't know why I got stuck back then, but I definitely got stuck, and that seemed to help.
That was your savoring moment, Brooke. You were
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't want it to end quite yet, or you're kind of holding on a little bit, and like once you realize, wait, I don't need to be here.
Am I ready? And then I was like, I really don't need to be here. I can let this go. Boom.
But it brings up an interesting point too, is about having a nice ending is great, but you have to have a plan for after that ending, right? So saying,
Yeah.
hey, I'm looking forward, I'm gonna have all this free time, maybe I'll start to keep my routine, but I'll go to the gym instead, I'll do this and that and the other, or
Pretty
engage in a
routine.
hobby or a passion or something. Or when it comes to retirement again, like if you don't have anything
Yeah.
to do after that, then it's, or after therapy, like it's talking about those techniques and strategies and that encouragement, so they know what to do once the ending is done, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah. And then after the doctorate, I remember just asking people, and I'm like, there's no more school to do. So I was like, what do you do on the weekends? My whole life I've been in school. Like, what do people do on the weekends and in their spare time? Because that's a novel experience to me. I was like, I need some ideas. So it was like a social experiment there.
The author Susan Cain, who wrote a book called Quiet a few years ago about introverts and about the power of introversion. She wrote a book, just came out a few months ago, called Bittersweet, which talks about the experience of bittersweetness. And I think that endings, especially graduations, bittersweetness is a big part of that whole experience. And I believe that can be and is often is the experience of ending therapy as well. There's like this, the sweetness is, yay, I've achieved something and I've accomplished something. I can move on to the next phase. But the bitterness, the sadness is, I'm moving on, I'm letting something go. And that is so much a part of the I think that's a part of a good ending, really. The bittersweetness is that's kind of the best we hope for oftentimes. It's like, okay, this was good, but it's also time to move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then naturally, there's going to be a little space, a little void in your life, whether it's
Yep.
book, the entertainment from the book or the movie, or if it's, yeah, the course is done or that job position's done, or you don't live at the house anymore. There's a little bit more space in life, and you don't have to fill it right away.
It's true. It's true.
You can if you want, but
Yeah. But eventually that void will be filled.
Mhm.
New associations will be made. Novelty helps with that, or just fostering curiosity, or yeah, it will happen.
Yeah, but you raise a good point there, Brooke, of like, you know, when you finished your schooling had taken up so much of your time that it had kind of filled up all these empty spaces, right? The weekends, basically. And then when schooling's done, you're like, now what do I do with the space? You know, and that forces you to look at yourself. Well, what do I want? What do I want to put in that space? What am I?
Exactly.
What are my other interests? I mean, this has been my focus for so long. What else is there, right?
yeah, what are some things that I haven't done because I didn't have the time?
Yeah.
Another ending I'm just thinking about, as you know, in the past couple of episodes we've been talking about like pruning day. Another ending could be
Mm,
saying goodbye to items.
true.
Mhm.
Oh yes.
Creates physical space around us, and that can be hard too.
Oh yeah. Have you guys ever sold a car or let go of a car? Or even a couch, or you know, something that's just been occupied your space and part of your world for a while. Letting that go, we feel silly sometimes, but that does have some feeling.
Mhm.
For sure. I'm kind of curious. Again, I keep on going back to an example of ending a job. Do you think it's important to find out what that person's preferences are? Because sometimes people don't want anything too extravagant, or they don't want to be put on the spot or feel awkward, right? So is that more encouragement because you feel that the person may benefit from that, or would that be no? It's other there's other methods of getting that appreciation across. Sorry,
Like a giant card.
cards, or a gift card, or there's lots of ways to
That, yeah.
do that. Right?
Well, your dad, so we did the little marriage workshop thing. Dennis was putting it on for helping train the therapists about marriage therapy, and it was great. He said, everyone knows the golden rule: do unto others as you would have done unto you. But he said that that's not always the case in marriage, and I wonder if it's the case in this situation, which is do unto others as they want done to them. So what we want isn't necessarily what the other person wants, and we want to be respectful of that.
Yeah.
As long as obviously it's not damaging. Sometimes people need protection, but what do they want?
Which is interesting, actually. I don't know the answer to this one, but there are a lot of times when people, what they say is different than what they want when it comes to something like this, right? Like they'll say, "Oh, yes, I'm leaving. I've been at this company for 40 years, but I'm leaving. Let's not make a fuss. I'll just go," right? And so their friends and colleagues say, "Well, we're going to have a big farewell brunch or something, or happy hour or something like that." And then they're kind of happy they did that. Right.
True.
So it's a little dicey when it comes to some of these situations, right?
Right, depending on the honesty of the person, how close you are with them to judge that.
Yeah.
Like, so if this person has a track record of wanting to fly under the radar and doesn't quite like the spotlight, yeah, then hey, you know what, maybe they would like something else.
It's I gotta say, as a therapist though, and someone who really likes clear communication, it's unfortunate, like, because I've known that some people will have that situation. Oh, don't do anything for me. It's not a big deal. And that's exactly what happens. Nothing happens at their retirement or something. And then they're mad. They're like, oh gosh, why didn't anyone do anything for me? You know? And it's like,
Yes.
well, you told them not to, so they actually followed your wishes. Yeah, but they should have done something anyway. Well, you know, and that becomes a little messy situation, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But Brooke, as you're saying, you know, I guess if
They're not mind readers.
they're not mind readers, right? And Brooke, you're saying if you know someone well enough, maybe they tend to downplay that. Maybe you override it. But I mean, we've all known people who are like, "Oh, don't throw me a surprise party. Don't, you know, oh no party for my birthday or whatever it might be." And then you do it. Someone does it anyway, and they're really happy about it. Like,
It's almost finding the difference between the, oh, don't do it, knowing that they really enjoy parties or being the center, you know, and then the people who are like, no, seriously, don't do it. Like, that's my nightmare, you know, like, I don't know. I guess you just try to gauge
Yeah.
that, you know, that person and, you know, and base it off of that. Right. So
Yeah.
you can do your best, but
It's funny because if you do throw the party, you're essentially saying, I know that I shouldn't trust you at your word. Right.
Yeah.
You told me not to throw a party. I did anyway, and you liked it, which tells me I know that you're not telling me the truth.
You're not trustworthy.
No.
It's a perfect thing to put in their goodbye card.
So let's have a couple examples of if you can think of any of like some good goodbyes as far as shows or people or endings at work or saying goodbye to a house or whatever it might be for you.
Yeah, I think our go ahead, Ryan. Yeah, go for it.
No, go, Chris. You had something on your mind.
This thing popped in my mind. Our practice, the one that my parents started 41 years ago, we always celebrate transitions, right? Obviously, if the associates have been around for a while, it's versus like 1 or 2 years, obviously that makes a bit of a difference. But I remember there's another counseling practice in the area, and they were going to lose a psychologist. We're going to lose one of our top family therapists, and they're going to go start their own practice, right? And it was a big blow to our practice. She was a very great personality. She helped with the culture. She's very good at what she did. Anyways, we threw her a party. We had a little lunch and we had food, and we shared some words with her. She got a card. The other psychologists who loved other practice, there was nothing. There was some tough feelings. There was some, no card, no lunch, no nothing. I think the other partners are frustrated she was leaving them or whatever it might be. So the I guess when our colleague joined the other joined together, her new colleague was like, I can't believe they threw you a going away party because you're leaving them. But anyways, that popped in my mind. But we always try to make even though it hurts, and I've done that in other jobs as well, it's bittersweet because you're like, we don't want you to go. It's a huge loss for us, but we're happy for you. We want to celebrate this occasion.
In my family of origin, we actually, I wouldn't call it a celebration. We wouldn't like celebrate the endings, but we would have conversation about the endings. So we would all sit in the living room and or just whoever it was with my parents or whoever was home can join in the conversation. It wasn't mandatory, but there would be a conversation about, what you had just done, whether it's moving and then reminiscing, remember these times and remember when this or when we first got the place or and what are you looking forward to in the next place? And so we would debrief essentially experiences. Same with just really any transition. We would debrief them instead of celebrate them.
Yeah.
So I tend to do that now. Like whenever we're coming back from a conference, I like to do the award ceremony.
Okay. Yeah, you'll go to the awards and you'll see kind of bring that closure to it like that.
Yeah, just kind of reflecting on your experience, like what are some takeaways? What are some things that you didn't agree with? down to like, what was your favorite meal? What was the funniest moment? Whatever, like, and people can just go back and forth asking each other questions. Yeah, so I like to debrief things.
I like that, Brooke, because it's an acknowledgement. Like, not all endings require celebrating, or it's not appropriate, right? So, but the
Yeah.
acknowledgement piece, I think, is whether it's acknowledging or giving space to talking about that experience for you, whether it's positive, negative, tough, whatever.
Yeah, and you try to talk about all the different pieces, right?
All the
So,
different
like,
aspects.
focusing on the negative, you want to focus on all the pieces.
Feelings associated with it, perhaps, right?
Yeah, if you need to.
Yeah, I had like, when I left the agency work after 8.5 years, they kind of had a little luncheon. It was more the celebratory part. Definitely, as a whole staff, and they are very kind, and we got together, they had a card and a little gift, and then kind of did more debriefing on the individual levels, about more of the tough stuff, like getting really close to a couple colleagues that I was no longer going to see every day, things like that. And but that was nice overall, but it's bittersweet. It was a bittersweet ending. But that was probably one of my more recent, because that was just last year. So
Yeah.
switching a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
I feel like I want to point out that Joanna's job that she left is in the same block as where we work now. I feel like you could see your coworkers. I don't know how often you actually get to see them, if you guys meet up at the coffee shop or something. And it is,
Yeah, no,
you don't see them every day, but I'm hope you still see them regularly.
yeah, no, I see one regularly, but not the others. You're close proximity wise, but it's different. There's not a guarantee seeing people. I haven't seen some of them for months. So it's just, you hope for the best. Oh, I'm right here. We're going to see each other, but it changes. It's a different dynamic. It's, there's still an ending to what was, and now it could be something different. So it definitely does change. So, yeah, but yeah.
I guess I'll share a therapy experience of working with someone who was in a really tough place in his life and was probably not in the right career for him, and had a lot of self-doubt and challenges there. And we worked through a lot of that, and he was able to kind of work through some of the personal issues in his life, and made that leap into a career that was a better fit for him. And this was, I mean, I'm summarizing probably 4 years of work, but he was able to get that next career. And after working in this new career for a while, and feeling like he was much more on his feet, about 6 months into that, he said, I think I'm about ready to end our work together, or I think I'm getting ready to end. And he decided that the 1 year anniversary at his new job would be the time that'd be kind of fitting for him, like a fitting ending for that. So we talked through a lot of that for the next few months, and prepared for it, and talked about what that ending would look like, and had our final session. And it was really, it was nice. It was 1 year anniversary. I think he got a raise that week, which was kind of cool. And like, it was that bittersweetness, but it was definitely a time of like closure and celebration, but also a sadness that we're going to end. Also knowing that when it comes to therapy, it's not like my door slams shut. People can come back if they want to. And that was something that was made very clear too. Like, you're always welcome to come back. Maybe that'll happen. Maybe it won't. It's one of the challenges that we have as therapists. I'm sure you guys have experienced some of this too, which is that I love the work that we do with our clients, but we don't always get to see how things pan out. We don't get to see where their story goes after they leave our office. So sometimes they'll come back and check in, or have another little round of therapy or something like that. But a lot of times when people leave for us, we don't get to hear the end of their stories, or the remainder of their stories, which is fine. But it's from the therapist chair, that's one of the harder things that we have to deal with too, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good point. Often you get some good momentum and then they just don't come back.
Yeah,
Feel
right.
stable,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They feel stable, they're doing okay, and then
Yeah. And that's what we want. We want them to go and launch off and do your own thing, and that's great. But I often times catch myself thinking about former clients that I've had and wondering, I wonder what they're doing right now, and I wonder how their life's going, and it's not it's not part of our ethics to be able to just reach out and say, hey, how's things going with your marriage, or how's the new job? We need to respect people's privacy and say, if you don't want to be in therapy right now, that's fine. You go off and do your own thing. But it is a little bit of a loss from the therapist chair. It's like, oh, we don't know where they are anymore.
Yeah.
Mhm.
for sure.
Yeah.
Good story.
Yes. Yes. Well, we're gonna have to end for tonight, everybody. That's bittersweet for me.
Should we debrief? Should we,
Should
what do
we
we
have
need
a
to do?
ceremony?
everyone feel okay?
I feel great.
Good.
I feel pretty good too.
Let's have the perfect ending.
We're gonna have the perfect ending in a few weeks, or whenever we have our final session, when we dress up like we're going to the Oscars and dress to the nines and being able to say goodbye to the podcast, right?
Sounds
But-
good.
Until then, we're gonna have another one of our podcasts with Brooke talking, ambushing, and then the book club, Irvin Yalom, Gift of Therapy, and then we'll wrap up, right?
Indeed.
Indeed. Well, all right, so we'll wrap up. That's it. Like and subscribe on Apple, Google, Podbean, Audible, Spotify, Stitcher, or YouTube. Send your questions nowhere. Tell a friend or two.
We still have an Instagram page, Mental Health Boot Camp.
We do. And we
Hasn't
have,
been
Send
updated.
questions through Instagram. Yeah.
yeah, Instagram or Facebook, right? And we'll say goodnight for now. Good night, everybody.
Night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye
Bye,
now.
everyone.
Bye. 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 Hold on.
Bye now.
Still saying bye.